Joanna, thank you very much for joining me on this podcast today. I have looked into your entire career, and it seems like you have almost five different stages over your entire career. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience leading up to your entrepreneurial career and how that tied into your actual entrepreneurial career?
Yeah, it's funny when I advise people all the time on their careers, I tell them I've had five, not just one career, not two, five careers. Um, and so everything you do just leads up to each other and plays on top of each other. But for me, I started as a lawyer. I worked as a lawyer for a full year and a half. I hated that every minute of it. Then I actually worked in venture capital for quite a few years. I worked in private equity for a while and then ended up in digital health. I got super interested in digital health and wanted to make an impact there. So it's true. I've had five careers.
Yeah, and that's actually something that was really quite incredible to me is when you started with Kurbo, your first company. It seemed like that there is such an enormous mountain of knowledge that you have to go through before you can start a company, which is also tied into so many regulations and a lot of information and knowledge that you have to learn from the ground up. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of starting such a journey, of where you start with the initial problem identification and then how you get to making a functional product?
It's actually funny you say that because probably if I had known all the complications legally and in the healthcare system, maybe I wouldn't have started it. So the there's sometimes an advantage of being naive, I would say. The opportunity with Kurbo is enormous, right? We wanted to solve childhood obesity, and we saw a bunch of companies getting solved to address adult obesity, and there were no companies getting solved to address childhood obesity. And so the opportunity was really clear, and it was really clear there was you could use um, a phone, and that's what children loved. So you could use a phone to help address the issue, which with a device that children really appreciated. And one thing kids don't want to do is be told what to eat. They don't want to have to go talk to a nutritionist. They want it, but they do want to be healthy and they want guidance on how to do that. We wanted to use the phone as a way to guide kids to healthier habits. And we ended up finding out that at least in the United States, many of the children who are overweight or obese are also poor and on Medicaid. So we spent years trying to get Medicaid to pay for our product. And we actually got there. We got a number of Medicaid contracts around the country. But that is a hard process. And starting over again, it's hard to know whether or not we would do Medicaid again because it was so challenging. But you have to in order to solve the problems. A lot of these operational things are hard, but they're worthwhile doing because that's how you make a big difference is by solving these operational challenges.
Yeah, and I guess that is also, let's go back a little bit because Kurbo came from a personal experience where you identified a problem, and the same was with MIDI. Because it's so close to the heart and because it affects so many people so personally, and that makes for a very mission driven company. Do you think that helps with focus when it comes to providing an end product? Like, because something is close to you and you have such a clear idea of what you would like your own experience to be like for that product, does it help the entire team gather around and really make sure that the end product is exactly what you wanted it to be from the first place?
Yeah, we're a very mission driven company. So everyone in this company is focused on the mission, understands the mission, whether you're a woman in perimenopause or menopause or not, we spend a lot of time educating people on what is our challenge and how we're trying to fix it. And it is personal. I understand personally these issues and what happens in your life and at work, in your marriage, when things can go wrong with perimenopause and menopause. So it really actually helps a lot in scaling a company because it gives you a really good focus. The other thing that it actually is helpful is all of my friends and relatives are also using MIDI, and therefore it has to be great, right? Like when my whole family, this is very personal. Everyone I know is coming to us to get care. We really better give them amazing care because otherwise I would be embarrassed when I walk down the street, which I don't want to be. So it is a very personal problem for me to solve.
Is that pressure motivating, or can it
Oh,
also
yes.
stand in your way
Very
sometimes?
motivating.
Yeah.
No, it's very motivating.
Recently, I saw that there have been a lot of partnerships, which you guys have been starting, also on the employee side, because you have both the B2C, where you go directly to the consumer, but then you also have the B2B, where you go to the organizations. What has it been like marketing this to the B2B market and having people use it as an actual company benefit? Has that been challenging, or has it been really well received by B2B companies?
2 years ago, when I started the company, I was talking to some consultants and telling them why that they should care about this for their employees. And then the companies they advise, and the consultant said, "Wait, this is really women in 60 and up. That's not really the population that employers are worried about. I'm not sure this is very relevant to them." And so a lot of this is an education process that perimenopause starts impacting women in their 30s. And this is their key workforce. This is not, I think they should care about the older population, but we're not talking about the older population. We're talking about the core women in their companies. Starting around 35, they start having menopause symptoms. They start not sleeping. They start having anxiety. They start having panic attacks. They start having brain fog. All of the symptoms of perimenopause and menopause start in your 30s. So this is really important for employers to address. It is truly an issue of equity. If you want the women in your population to thrive and to be the managers and leaders of your company going forward, you really need to provide them services early. And the good thing is that menopause is starting to take off. The discussion is changing. People are paying much more attention to it. And they're realizing that, number one, this is a much broader age range than they thought, that it really is women starting in their 30s and 40s, and that also that we can help them. There is really good care that can be offered to them that can solve the problems that they're experiencing and make them very quickly into extremely good workers if they were suffering. And so we're actually getting a great reception now from employers.
Interesting. So, can you tell us a little bit about what the go-to-market strategy looked like, specifically for the B2B side? Because this is knowledge that it's almost like you first have to teach the companies this, and then also show why MIDI is useful in that case. And that can be quite a challenge, especially when
Yeah.
the initial product is not completely understood by the companies. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've done that?
Yeah, so that is exactly what we lead with is education. Everything we do is about education. We're educating employers on why this matters to them. We're educating employees on what's going on in their body and how we can help them. So it really is a multifaceted approach, but everything that we do starts with education and really letting people know here's what's going on for women's bodies. There are solutions, and that we're a really good place to get those solutions.
Mhm. What channels are you using primarily? Is there a lot of digital marketing? Is there any direct sales that you do? What does that look like?
We do a lot of digital marketing. Everything's around digital marketing. That's the most
Mhm.
effective tool. LinkedIn is great for us. Google's great for us. Content marketing, but yeah, we do a lot of LinkedIn and we do a lot of LinkedIn and Google.
I come from a sales background myself, and there is a lot of HR tech at the moment. And usually, what that leads to is that, especially within direct sales, is that it's very hard to get through the noise, so to say, especially when you've got something which can be really good, but just because of the general sense of the market, it can be very hard to actually get in around the table with employers and promote your product.
I get reaches out all the time from heads of HR who are men, and they're saying, "How do I help my wife with this?" Or "How do I help the women in my population with this?" As I said earlier, it's really about two things. It's about educating them and really informing them that there are solutions. Because the key
Mhm.
thing here is that if you don't know there are solutions, you don't even know where to look to solve them. For example, there's more women who go to therapy than men, and there's more women who are on antidepressants than men. It turns out that when women stopped taking hormones in 2001 because a incorrect study that came out that scared them unnecessarily about hormones, that when they stopped taking the hormone replacement therapy, the percentage of women on antidepressants went up 6 to 7 times. Think about that. Essentially, women were getting put on antidepressants instead of the right medications. So now also they're going to therapy at a much higher rate. Maybe they're going to therapy for these same issues. We actually did a study and found out that 91% of the women who come to us, their mental health improves within 2 months only on the things that we give them, no therapy and no antidepressants. That's a huge issue for us to solve. But if you don't know that as a head of HR, you're not going to start thinking about that and go, oh, women in my population, I should be seeing if they are having hormone issues, not seeing whether they just have anxiety or
Mhm.
depression. Another really good example is sleep. So women are not sleeping. So then you start getting them sleep studies, or you start trying to figure out what are the anxiety things that are making them not sleep. Again, it can just be hormones. But if you don't know to look for that, then you're going to be providing solutions. So, really, what it comes down to is making sure that people in HR are educated to understand here are the health issues that women face in this age category, and that a provider who is trained in women's health can help them. And once we make that story to them, they understand it, and it's actually a pretty easy sale.
Mhm. Then after that comes the actual adoption of using MIDI, and employees have to start actively asking for MIDI as well. How do you make sure that HR markets this internally, promotes this internally?
So we believe that we can make HR into heroes in their population by offering MIDI. What we say is the women will be super grateful to you to do this. So it is worthwhile for you to make that investment in the marketing and sending out educational emails, and very importantly, inviting women to webinars to talk about their symptoms and how they can be fixed. And we found that employers are very receptive to this.
Mhm. Okay. Now, you have seen unbelievable growth. You've gone from having, I believe, 60 appointments to now 2,000 appointments in a single week, which is
Way
unbelievable.
over 3,000. We're
Way
far
over
over
the,
3,000 to this.
even better. How have you been able to facilitate such growth? Did you make sure that the foundation was really strong from the start?
That's exactly right. We spent a lot of time creating our training program to make sure that all of our NPs, we could train them very efficiently and make sure they had incredibly good training. So that was the most important thing. We spent a year building out that training platform. And now when we onboard new providers, we can make sure that they are extremely high quality from day one because of the training that we developed. And that's enabling us to scale.
What does your quality control look like? How do you make sure that all the physicians are actually trained the way that you want them? Is there a separate department which looks just on that part of the business?
Quality. Yeah. So we use AI actually to do that, which is pretty interesting. So we record all of our visits. Everything we do is recorded. And then it's the AI will create a follow-up to the patient, but also a follow-up for us. And then we basically have our protocols. And our protocols are this thick. There's so much that goes into our protocols. And we fed those into my new best friend, Claude, which is the Anthropic AI. And now we send every one of our reports after the visit through that quality control. And then we're able to see whether the provider missed anything during that visit and follow up with them. So we really are using AI to provide incredible quality control. And then a person will follow up and have that discussion. But this is a way of making sure all of our care is very well standardized.
Mhm. AI is taking over more and more. It can do things so much quicker than a human can, but there are still those faults within AI. Do you still have people specifically checking over the work that the AI does too, every once in a while?
Yes, there's AI is just something that makes things more efficient. But we don't view it as a way of taking humans out of the equation. It's just a way of making the people more efficient.
Mhm. What other aspects do you see AI play within media or maybe even the healthcare industry in general? Because there is a notorious amount of paperwork. Do you think that
Right.
AI is going to become bigger and is going to take over more and more of that efficiency within the industry so that people can actually focus on what is the most important, which is obviously dealing with the patients?
I'm optimistic about that. Yes. That our providers say that the AI that we're providing them definitely makes them much more able to focus during a conversation like we're having, to really just talk during their visit and not have to worry about taking all the notes. And they believe it enables them to give actually much higher quality care than they might otherwise.
I think it's a much larger problem, or not even a problem. There is so much opportunity within the entire healthcare industry. You've already tackled two enormous issues and impacted a lot of people with that, Kurbo and MIDI Health now. What other aspect of healthcare do you see a lot of potential in of improvement? And if you had a second career path which you could follow right now and just find the time magically, what would you focus that energy in?
Honestly, women's health is just super exciting to me. So I'm not looking for another career path. I want to keep doing this.
Okay.
The opportunity to make an impact on women's health is just starting. We need more research, we need more resources, um, we need more people who are providing care. There's so many opportunities to improve the lives of women worldwide with this care that my goal would be to continue to focus in this area. I think that you're in Europe, that Europe is equally behind in terms of women giving access to women for the highest quality of care during this period of their life. And I feel just super motivated and energized by the fact that there's new research, there's new technology, there's new providers that are coming out that we can scale their expertise. This is really about taking that expertise that individual people have and using technology to scale it. And that is amazing. Right now, the amount of innovation that's happening is impossible for one person to know. It's just impossible. So, your one primary care provider cannot know all the research that's going on brain health, on cardiovascular health, on bone health. Like, there's so many things. So, what's exciting to me is that now we can use technology to train providers and enable them to give the highest quality care to people.
Completely understandable. I think there's enough to do. Joanna, thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming on the podcast. You've impacted such an unbelievable amount of people in the last 10 years. It's truly inspiring. So thank you very much.